Now it's time for Toker Talk Radio, the voice of the marijuana nation.
What are you people? On dope?
Where you can toke.
I inhale frequently.
Or you can talk.
I experimented with marijuana and didn't inhale.
Or you can toke and talk.
10 federal criminal penalties for possession of up to 1 ounce of marijuana.
While we talk about toke on Toker Talk Radio.
So, by the way, when it comes to pot, you know, if you're 40 years old, you live in a log cabin in Oregon, you got 12 giant pot plants in your backyard, have a ball.
Live from beautiful Portland, Oregon at Rolla J Studios.
Hey, this is great. Just not cannabis.
Plus your calls live at 971-533-7111.
They're walking on their pants with their cap on backwards, listening to Enema Man and Snoopy Poop Dog.
What's to keep somebody from getting all potted up on weed and then getting behind the wheel? Gateway theory doesn't work. It's a reality.
Holland, is it real? Don't tease me.
We're locking up people that take a couple of puffs of marijuana, and the next thing you know, they got 10 years.
And now, here's your host, the guru of ganja graphics, the sultan of sativa statistics, and the worst nightmare of a reefer-mad prohibitionist. A polite, perspicacious, productive pothead with a propensity for PowerPoint. Radical Russ Belville.
Good day, Tokers and Tokettes, and welcome to Hour 2 of the Russ Belville Show, Toker Talk Radio. And I begin this show with a heavy heart and a dedication to a friend of mine. You know me as Radical Russ here on the airwaves, and Radical Russ, the radical part, has nothing to do with politics, has nothing to do with whether my views are extreme or whatever. It's an old high school nickname. I used to be in a group in high school, a little kind of a fraternity, if you will, kind of a rebel group, called the Nampa High School Radicals. We were the NHS Radicals. We had our own little T-shirts with our names and numbers on them, like jerseys. I mean, we were a weird group of guys. And, well, today I lost one of those guys, a dear friend of mine that I've known since childhood. He's just a year older than me, so at the age of 47, he has died from a heart attack and subsequent brain injuries, again at the age of 47. His name is James Greg Giles, but to me, he'll always be Django Giles. It was long, long, long before Django Unchained. And that was the nickname he went by as part of our high school fraternity, as part of the NHS Radicals. My dad actually gave him more nicknames. He was Greg DJ Django the Hammer Two-Barrel Snaggletooth Snark Giles. But my dad, you know, you wonder where the nickname thing comes from? You got to see my dad. Anyway, Django, as I knew him in school, he was a foster kid who finally ended up with a loving family in the Cases. His sister and my dear friend Vicky Case Horn is the one who informed me of the family's loss, and many of the family were at his side in Las Vegas as doctors tried to save him. I'll always remember Django as kind of the face of our A-team. You know, remember the A-team? He was strong and athletic and outgoing and popular, and he had quite a way with the ladies too. We went through high school together with, there was a photo for our high school graduation, front page of the local newspaper, that was the back of his head as one of our classmates, Bernadette Lopez, is hugging him, and you can see the front of her face, and it, you know, captioned them for the high school graduation and everything. That was back in May of 1985. But after high school, most of the guys from the Radicals, we still stuck together, even though we were separated. You know, some of us went north to Moscow, to the University of Idaho, and the rest of us stayed south at Boise State University. One of the traditions we used to have was our annual Turkey Bowl. I know, this time it seems kind of cliche now, right? You've heard of turkey bowls that people do all the time now, but this was back in 1986, our first year out of college, or out of high school, our first year in college. And you have that Thanksgiving break. And so everybody had returned home to Nampa to visit their families. And so we all went to go play a game of pickup tackle college football, tackle football, I should say, at our old high school stadium. Bulldog Bowl. Django, being the athlete that he was always playing some skill position. I remember one time he was quarterback and threw the most awful, terrible pass that was intercepted. And I think the exclamation was, Those aren't passes. Those are footballs falling from the sky. Oh, man. But, yeah, he got to play all the running back and quarterback and all that. And me, my fat ass, I got to be center. I got to be nose tackle and center. But anyway, we had a lot of fun. And somewhere along the line, I don't remember how it happened, but somewhere along the line, we made this rule that if Django or his protege, Chuck, who was my brother's age, so like 3 years younger, we had this rule that if Django or Chuck somehow managed to score a touchdown naked, it would count for 14 points. So at the end of a particularly lopsided blowout, you got these guys stripping down naked. Nobody wants to tackle a naked guy. I don't remember if we ever actually did it, but I think I seem to recall we did, but I don't. Maybe we did. I don't know. Anyway, I do have a picture of our famous moon patrol where we'd all, flash the camera. So at least we got that. I also remember when Django turned 19, back in Idaho in the day, 19 was the legal drinking age. So when Django turned 19, we had a toga keg party at one of my girlfriend's house back in the day. And somehow we all ended up in lingerie. Okay, somehow probably is booze, but we all ended up in lingerie. So I got some great photos of Django in a nice camisole. It's very pretty. These are up at my Facebook page, by the way, at Radical Russ on Facebook. So if you're interested in following along with the pictures. But as college faded, all us guys kind of started to lose touch a bit. We'd return for the Turkey Bowl every year, but other than that, we rarely got to see each other. I do remember in the 90s, or maybe it was the late 80s, where Django ended up in South Lake Tahoe, Nevada. He was playing the part of younger man to a cougar. Before we used to call middle-aged women cougars, right? So he was kind of a precedent setter for the day. But I had a meltdown back in Idaho, and he had sold me this motorcycle, and I drove this motorcycle all the way to South Lake Tahoe and spent 9 days there with him and had a great time. I returned to Boise because, at that time I wasn't ready to jump out and, be on my own and kind of in a new, unfamiliar place. But man, that was something Django could do in a flash. He could move anywhere, and be set up and have a job and have friends within a month. He was that kind of guy. In fact, one time I remember he was living in Venice Beach, California, in this little dinky apartment that was like $600 a month, which at the time was like, oh my God, $600 a month. Now, oh wow, I wonder what that apartment would cost. He was trying to become an actor at the time. And I remember while we were down there, too, we went to high school, by the way, with Playboy's 1990 Playmate of the Year, Renee Tennyson, and her twin sister, Rosie Tennyson, who was a Victoria's Secret cover model. Anyway, they were in LA at the time, too. So I remember Django getting us together for some fun. That was a lot of fun. Don't worry, not that much fun, but it was a fun time seeing the girls again. But he was at Venice Beach. We met him there on our way to South Padre Island, Texas for a spring break. And I thought for sure, while he was in Venice there, while he was in LA, that he was going to make it as an actor. And he just had that kind of personality. And he did actually get some commercials. He did a beer commercial and a couple others, I can't remember. And the peak of his career, he ended up in a television movie pilot called Angel Street. It was this buddy cop drama with two lady cops, and one of the lady cops was Robin Givens, the ex-wife of Mike Tyson. And he was cast as Robin Givens' partner's boyfriend. But the show didn't make it. It was like canceled in 3 episodes. And the few scenes he did have, he had like the tiniest little speaking part, and that got cut. So like all you saw in the show, like all of our friends were like, oh, let's wait. We can't wait to see the show. All you got to see of him was like him playing pool and then walking out. I was like, okay, that was his peak of stardom, though. It did get him landing a entry in the Internet Movie Database, imdb.com. He's still there under DJ Giles, not DJ like a DJ. You have to go D.J. Giles, and he's still listed up there. And by the way, you can connect me to DJ Giles through the Oracle of Bacon game in 4 steps. What else? Oh, I remember in the 90s one time, we had this amazing rafting expedition. Django and our other friend Ricky and that's his real legal given name, Ricky. Django and Ricky were river rafting guides. They were river rafting guides for a couple summers and got really good at it. And so I think it was 93, maybe 94, somewhere in there. We went and took my band's bus. Now, I had an old blue school bus that we took all of the seats out of so we could put all their amplifiers and lights and stuff in there. We took the band bus, took all the gear out of it, packed it up with a couple of rental rafts from Boise State University, paddles, coolers full of beer, all that stuff. Took about 10 guys in the bus and took it up to Riggins, Idaho to raft on the Salmon River. Now, first of all, driving this bus on these narrow little one-lane mountain roads that hug the river, that like have cliff on one side of them and mountain wall on the other side of them, driving the bus through that was a feat in and of itself. So we unload the bus with the rafts, and we then rafted down the river. And at the time, the river was at flood stage. There was a lot of rains in Idaho that year. So the Salmon River, which is already class 3 and class 4 rapids, at that point was class 4 and class 5 rapids. It was exhilarating. It was an amazing trip. And both Django and Ricky were really good at, keeping us safe and everything. So we did have a great time. After we had rafted the river, Django and I had to go back and, hitch back to get we grabbed one of the cars and we drove back to get the bus to go, bring back and pick up the rafts. We brought the bus back and I backed it down the loading ramp into the river and turned the bus off. And we loaded up all the gear. And then as it was time to leave, I go to turn the bus on and there's nothing. Bus won't start, won't turn over, nothing. And here it is, parked on this, loading ramp with its ass almost in the Salmon River. And that's when Django poked into the bus and said, "Dude, just put it in reverse and pop the clutch. It'll start right away." Yeah, right, I'm thinking, because this is my band's bus. And if it doesn't work, the bus is in the river. Now, at this point, though, it really seemed like the only option because it was late at night. AAA is like very far away. And even if they could come, could they bring something that could tow out a bus on that much of an angle? So I got talked into it. I got talked into giving it a try. We went and surveyed the back. The tailpipe was about 3 feet away from the water's edge. And I got into the bus and turned it on and popped it into reverse and let it rock back and popped the clutch. And wouldn't you know it, the damn thing started. First try. We went back out to see how close we had gotten. We were literally 2 inches from the water line with the tailpipe when it finally caught and started. And we were able to make it out after that. God, there's so many memories of Django. I remember he was in Chicago at one point. He ended up living in Chicago. And I got to visit him because I was on this job in the 90s where I was a database consultant. I was traveling all over the country and I had a gig in Chicago. So I met up with him. And his roommate was actually a bartender at Buddy Guy's Legends, which is blues guitarist Buddy Guy, who's my hero of blues guitarists. He has a club called Legends. We were there in Chicago. It was the 5th Chicago Bulls championship season. And we got to sit in sports bars with Chicago fans and watch the Bulls win their 5th championship. I'll never forget that. Afterwards, though, rather than going to Buddy Guy's Legends, for some reason we ended up eating curried goat in the south side of Chicago at an Ethiopian buffet, which kind of sounds like an oxymoron, doesn't it? Ethiopian buffet. Anyway, it was delicious. Great curried goat. And I found out later that what we missed at Buddy Guy's Legends was Buddy Guy himself walking in and having a jam session with Matt Guitar Murphy, Donald Duck Dunn, and Steve Colonel Cropper, the guitarist and bass player from the Blues Brothers band, and of course all the great Stax Volt hits, Memphis sound from back in the day, but which to me was like missing, the Beatles. It was just, oh my God, I can't believe I missed that. I'll always remember that about Django. I have to admit, though, most of my memories of Django go back to just the 20th century. Since 2000, I got married and moved to Oregon and kind of became an activist and doing what I'm doing. And I lost track of what he was doing. I didn't even know he was living in Las Vegas. I find out today that he had a heart attack and died. So, but is he really gone? You know, people talk about that, or he's gone to a better place. It's not, you know, everybody has their own belief systems. But to me, nobody's ever really gone. Yesterday, I didn't know if Django was alive or dead, and he was as real to me as he is today. He's still that real memory, that real person. And I believe that as long as someone has made an impact on the living, they're never truly gone. They still exist here. They still exist as patterns, as memories. They still leave their impression on us. Django made an impact on me and many friends and family members who will never forget his boisterous laugh, his can-do attitude, and his love of fun. Rest in peace, my radical friend. Dedicated to Django. We'll be right back. Talk some marijuana. Thanks for indulging me.
It's simply business. It's simply business. It's simply business, you know why they won't let us grow. It's simply business.
We'll be right back after these messages from our 420 friendly sponsors. Support these advertisers because their ad money goes straight to the Russ Belville Show. You're tuned into the Russ Belville Show, the voice of the marijuana nation.
It's simply business. It's simply business. It's simply business, you know why they won't let us grow. It's simply business. It's simply business, you know why they won't let us grow. It's simply business.
Hey Tokers and Tokettes, Radical Russ here to introduce you to my friend Matt and all the staff at Lush LED Lighting. Growing plants indoors can be a rewarding hobby, but electricity bills can go through the roof. Then you have to cool down all those big hot lights. It can drive a grower insane. With Lush LED Lighting, you can solve many of these issues and double your rewards. If you thought LEDs were meet the tech of today, Matt and his scientists have developed the perfect light for flowering plants with far less cost and heat. And the results? Let's just say I appear at a lot of events with the masters of indoor horticulture, and the harvests I saw from Lush LED Lighting were big, tight, sticky, and very effective. Check out LushLEDlighting.com right now and tell them Radical Russ sent you. Double your rewards and lower your expenses with Lush LED Lighting.
Funky fried doo-doo stew. And we just want to cook for you, Bobble. Yeah, check it out. We offer you a doo-doo stimulus package, and money's like manure. It's no good unless you spread it around. Yeah, so we'll be spreading it, baby.
Well, that was some music we heard from Tony Ozier and the Doo-Doo Funk All-Stars. They're a Portland band, and of course, opening that was the great Bootsy Collins with a little Doo-Doo Funk. Also, a little bit of Hoodie Monks started to kick in there, but Liebermater has her own will sometimes. I'm Radical Russ coming to you live from Miami, Florida, where I'll be here in Florida for the next couple of days. I'm doing the Florida Marijuana Conference. You can check it out at floridamarijuanaconference.com. I'm there with Major Neil Franklin from LEAP, also Irv Rosenfeld, one of the 4 federal medical marijuana patients, and others. Check it out at floridamarijuanaconference.com. And of course, MJBA's got their Women Cannabis Luncheon going on tomorrow afternoon. Check out mjba.net for that. I'll also be in Bellevue, Washington for an MJBA event happening on Thursday, May 22nd. Check out mjba.net for more details. But as I look at the clock,
Have you ever met that funny reefer man? A reefer man. Have you ever met that funny reefer man? A reefer man. If he said he swam to China, he would sell you South Carolina. Then you know you're talking to that reefer man.
The law offices of Omar Figueroa would like to remind you to stand up for your rights. Please do not give up your precious liberties. There's nothing wrong with standing up for our constitutional rights, and in fact, it's the best way to honor the Constitution that recognizes our natural rights. Treat law enforcement with respect and respect the Constitution by standing up for your rights. If you are detained or arrested, stand up for your rights by repeating, "I respectfully invoke all of my legal and constitutional rights. I do not consent to any search and seizure. I want to remain silent, and I want to speak with my attorney, Omar Figueroa." Omar Figueroa has more than a decade of experience in federal and California courts and graduated from Yale University, Stanford Law School, and Trial Lawyers College. Please contact the law offices of Omar Figueroa at 415-489-0420 or 707-829-0215 or on the web at omarfigueroa.com.
Let him bring in the beat.
Adam Hand of Handmade Apparel produces quality custom designs for t-shirts, hats, and other apparel. Handmade Apparel is the official design shop for 420 Radio, The Russ Belville Show, Ganja John, and Cascadia Concentrates, among many clients who rely on Adam Hand for everything from short-run custom projects to full-run clothing lines. Adam's meticulous designs are individually crafted and screened in vibrant high-definition color. Visit handmadeapparel.biz to browse the selection of handmade gear or to get a personal quote for your own designs. Handmade Apparel, a proud supporter of 420radio.org.
Let him bring in the beat.
Hemp Radio, replaying Wednesdays at 10 Pacific on 420radio.org.
I got that fire, fire, what your desire, I'll take you higher, I'll take you higher. I got that fire, fire, what your desire, I'll take you higher, I'll take you higher. I got that fire flame, that's where you came. I got the flame.
Welcome back, everybody. 23 after the hour. Radical Russ here, coming to you live from Miami, Florida, where we're on the road. On Saturday, I'll be in Fort Lauderdale doing a presentation and coverage of the Florida Marijuana Conference. And speaking of the Florida Marijuana Conference, they now finally have opposition. This just in from the Tampa Bay Times. A website is being launched. A political action committee that wants to fight medical marijuana in Florida launched its website Thursday. And the website is voteno2.org. VOTENO, the number 2, VOTENO, number 2.org. And as I seek that website, we shall see what pops up here, voteno2.org. Here we go. Looks like it's popping up. And basically, this is their attempt to fight medical marijuana in Florida. They've got a short film. And what you see when you first get there is something that says the devil is in the details. Basically trying to say that there's all these loopholes in the Medical Marijuana Act. Don't let them fool you. Amendment 2 is not designed to help the sick. Amendment 2 is designed to legalize pot smoking in Florida, etc., etc. Pot for anyone who wants it loophole, drug dealer loophole, teenager loophole, pill mill loophole, blah, 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 blah. This group it calls itself a grassroots campaign bringing the truth about Amendment 2 to the voters of Florida. Our coalition includes members of law enforcement, business leaders, constitutional law attorneys, doctors, and other medical professionals, parents and Floridians from all walks of life. We know that Amendment 2 is simply a guise to legalize pot smoking in Florida, and our goal is to point out the loopholes and explain why this amendment is bad for Florida. If you believe like we do, please take a moment to sign up for our email alerts, make a donation, or become a member of our team. Well, let me tell you just a little bit about this grassroots organization. It was created, this Vote No on 2 website was created by the Drug Free Florida Committee, which is a political action committee underwritten by St. Petersburg developer Mel Sembler. Now, Mel Sembler is this millionaire cat down in Florida, down here in Florida. Mel and Betty Sembler were the people that were behind a teen forced rehab camp called Straight Inc. Go Google Straight Inc. Mel Sembler and get a little education. Basically, what they had done is they, held kids and put them through a boot camp-like rehab situation. And they had a number of lawsuits that were filed against them where they finally, I believe, settled for one case of false imprisonment and another case of willful, not torture, but, abuse or something like that. Anyway, they moved on from the Straight Inc. to form the Drug Free America Foundation. They fund people like Calvina Faye and Kevin Sabet and all the drug warriors out there they can. So to call them a grassroots organization is stretching it just a little bit. It just shows the desperation that they're feeling in that the opposition here knows that the polls are showing 88% support for this medical marijuana. 88%. It's over 90% if you're under the age of 45. It's 99% for ages 18 to 29. It is rare you find anything in politics where there is 88% support for it. And this is that issue in Florida. And these guys must be terrified. The entire anti-marijuana regime is based in Florida. That's where Kevin Sabet's Institute of Drug Research is at the University of Florida. That's where all these guys come out of, is Florida. And of course, we could point out that here in Florida, there's a whole lot of drinking going on. In fact, my hashtag for this trip has been Flora Drunk. I have never been in a place that was so open and excessive about drinking, where drunk driving is just thought of as, something you mitigate. Like you pick a house to live closer to the bar so that when you drunk drive home, it's not as much of an issue, right? A place where the early bar closing is 3 a.m. The late bar closing is 5 a.m. And of course, South Beach, the bars never close. We also have to point out the mass number of big pharma firms and big rehab firms that are headquartered here in Florida. Passing medical marijuana, especially the medical marijuana that is written into Amendment 2, where people could actually access it and have dispensaries, is something that threatens their bottom line. And so they're very desperate here. And what their goal here is, they can't fight medical marijuana. That's one thing as I look at the website that I notice is they're not fighting the concept of medical marijuana. They're fighting the concept of pot smoking. Amendment 2 does not require a doctor's prescription in order to obtain medical pot because a prescription would violate federal law. Right, like every other medical marijuana state. But this is something they throw in to try to confuse the Floridian who doesn't really know that, to think, oh, what shady thing are they pulling here if it's not prescriptions? They also continue to say Amendment 2's authors define debilitating medical condition as any condition from back pain to trouble sleeping. That's an outright lie. Nothing in Amendment 2 says that a debilitating medical condition includes back pain or insomnia. There's nothing in it that directly says that. It does leave up to a doctor the right to determine what a debilitating medical condition is. And if you don't think back pain is debilitating, if you don't think chronic insomnia can be debilitating, you have not lived with those conditions. Of course, I suppose these opponents would prefer that the people go to one of Florida's ubiquitous pill mills, pick them up some sort of pill to deal with the pain. Better for profits that way, I suppose. They continue to say there's this drug dealer loophole. Amendment 2 allows so-called caregivers to dispense medical pot. Caregivers do not need medical training. They can be felons, even drug dealers. It will be easier to get a caregiver's license than a driver's license. That's deceptive. What a caregiver is is someone who can assist the patient with the preparation use of their medical marijuana. What it's primarily designed for is, say you're a cancer patient, you're an AIDS patient, you're a pain patient, you're a patient in Florida, and you're married. You and your wife, right? But your wife is healthy. Now, suppose that you've got medical marijuana as a Florida patient, and you left it in the car. Not out in the open. You had it in a jar, opaque covering in the center console or the glove compartment, whatever. But you left some medical marijuana in your car, and your wife borrows the car to go shopping. And when she's shopping, there's a fender bender. Somebody runs into the car, and then the cops are called for the insurance thing. And before you know it, next thing you know, there's some, I smell marijuana. There's some investigation. They find your wife with all this marijuana, and she's not a patient. So what happens? Well, I'll tell you what happens. She gets arrested. She gets thrown in jail. She gets treated like a criminal. That is what a caregiver statute is all about, is protecting the loved one who is most directly responsible for the care of that person. They talk about the teenager loophole. Under Amendment 2, teens and children will be able to legally purchase pot without their parents' consent. Amendment 2 places no age restriction on pot smoking. This is true. It does allow a doctor who's examining a child to be able to determine whether or not they have a debilitating medical condition. But the state still gets to write regulations about this after it passes. And I have a hard time believing that the state wouldn't craft regulations that require a little more oversight on minors being able to use marijuana. We've seen it in every other medical marijuana state. They usually have to have parental consent. They have to have, an extra doctor taking a look at them, etc. They also, their final one is a pill mill loophole. Amendment 2 places no restrictions on the location of seedy pot shops. Well, first of all, they better not be seedy. Like pill mills, look for pot docks to spring up next to restaurants, schools, churches, and supermarkets. Again, after Amendment 2 passes, just because the amendment doesn't place restrictions on where they can be, does not mean that the state or the cities can't set up zoning as to where they can be. As long as we're not talking about moratoriums or bans, it's perfectly reasonable to expect a city to have zoning regulations as far as where medical marijuana centers can be. And I think these guys are making a big mistake trying to frame any of their debate around the pill mill problem in Florida. Because anybody with a hint of education on cannabis can tell you that one of the best ways to get rid of pill mills is to give people a safer medical alternative. If a pot shop springs up, it helps put a pill mill out of business. You can check out this yourself. Again, it's voteno2.org. The devil is in the details. They've also got a short film about it that ought to be very interesting. We will check out more on this. And again, like I said, coming to you from the Drug-Free Florida Committee, Mel and Betty Sembler spending their millions to lie about medical marijuana, to make sure Floridians in pain, Floridians with debilitating conditions, don't get the opportunity to use a safe, natural alternative because God forbid somebody in Florida smokes a joint to get high. Oh no, like that's not happening already. Anyway, we got to take a break. And when we come back, Kevin Sabet has a new op-ed up in the Huffington Post about 5 ways that the press should cover marijuana issues. He's really upset about the way the press is covering these marijuana issues with things like, truth and reason. So stay tuned. We'll be back live from Florida.
We'll be right back after these messages from our 420 friendly sponsors. Support these advertisers because their ad money goes straight to the Russ Belville Show. the voice of the marijuana nation.
You know Herb Thrasher from the Herb Thrasher Flower Hour. Now get ready for Herb Age Designs for the proud cannabis consumer. Herb Age Designs, lifestyle gear for the 420 friendly. Herb Age Designs, home of the famous lighter leash. Herb Age Designs, get your Herb Age t-shirts and hoodies and show your pride. Herb Age Designs, we've got frisbee golf discs and durable hemp gear. Herb Age Designs, we've got shot glasses, drinking glasses, coffee mugs, and beer cozies. Check us out on Facebook and online at herbagedesigns.com and follow Herb Age and Herb Thrasher on Twitter. We'll see you at this year's Hemp Fest. Crank it up!
Support the Russ Belville Show. Text the word Russ to 420-420 and connect with the National Cannabis Coalition. You can also send $10 to the Russ Belville Show right from your smartphone. That's Russ to 420-420. You're listening to Radical Russ on the Russ Belville Show.
You can get 420 Radio on the go with the Ustream video app for Android and iPhone. Go to rad-r.us/420Ustream or just click the Ustream app icon for Android or iPhone below the live radio feed at 420radio.org.
That's the music there from Cass Haley with All My Life here on 420radio.org. I'm Radical Russ. Welcome back to Toker Talk Radio. And we've got a special bulletin coming in here from our Department of, Our Department of Marijuana Policy Hysteria. Hold on, let's tune this in. Yeah, there we go. Yes, Kevin Sabet has weighed in with a new piece on Huffington Post entitled 5 Ways to Accurately Cover Marijuana Policy Issues in the Media. And it's interesting because he comes right out and in Huffington Post, basically attacks Huffington Post. Says publications sympathetic to legalization, like HuffPost and Rolling Stone, continue to publish articles that obscure the science behind marijuana use and the increasing concerns of public health officials over the experience of legalization in places like Colorado. Yeah, those terribly unfounded articles like, how we've raised $7.2 million in recreational marijuana taxes and yet not seen $72 million in social health costs, as the Sabbat conjecture would predict. These terrible articles about how they've set up a DUI driving checkpoint. Out of 1,572 cars, they get 20 alcohol DUIs and 0 marijuana DUIs. Terrible, terrible articles about how the legalization amendment passed with 55% of the vote, and the most recent polls show Coloradoans supporting at 57%. Terrible, terrible mischaracterizations of what's going on in Colorado. Anyway, his complaints, of course, is that There's been 2 deaths attributed to legal marijuana cookies. 2 deaths from legal marijuana cookies. You know, the one death where the kid ate a whole cookie and then jumped off a hotel balcony. And the other death where the guy who was also on prescription medication killed his wife on a 911 call. All right, right. And then also complaining that poison control centers continue to report increasing calls related to the drug. Yeah, some people, given the chance to eat an entire brownie, find it doesn't work for them, and they call a poison control center. But guess what? They're not poisoned, they don't die, and they don't suffer any serious lasting harm. But anyway, he goes on, Kevin Sabet says, these articles make grand, often unfounded assumptions about marijuana and marijuana legalization. Here are some considerations any fair-minded writer should take into account. So let's tick them off, shall we? 1 through 5. Do not simply assume marijuana legalization is inevitable. Even though polls of the American people show that a grand majority of them think marijuana legalization is inevitable. Don't assume it, though, just because a majority of Americans do too. Don't do that. So he tries to paint this, Sabet tries to paint this as talking points, how the talking points of the pro-marijuana groups have developed. First, it was a natural harmless herb. Then it cured cancer. Now it's just unstoppable. And he likes to point out, and he makes this point, I've made this too. I've made this point before as well, how in 1977, legalization seemed inevitable. But by 1982, you had parents groups and, you know, the backlash in the Reagan era, right? There is something to be said about that point of view. However, let's also take a look at the fact that when we were talking about 1977, we were talking about a time when marijuana and cocaine were both thought of as equal drugs. They're not anymore. In 1977, we were talking about a time of unparalleled drug use in this country. Drug use levels are much lower today. In 1977, we were talking about a time when there wasn't a whole lot of public understanding or knowledge of the medical benefits of marijuana. We have that today. In 1977, we were talking about a time that was still mired in the politics of Watergate, the Vietnam War, and malaise, and high inflation, and high unemployment. We don't have any of that now. That doesn't exist. So this idea that marijuana legalization is not unstoppable is a pretty unfathomable one at this point. Now, how well marijuana becomes legalized, how much it gets legalized, that's still up for debate. And that's where I, again, encourage people to be very diligent about how we portray and move forward in the marijuana legalization movement. But again, it's not a question of if marijuana is going to be legalized, Kevin. It's just how and when. Now, he likes to point out some polls. He says a Pew Research poll said that when they give people the choice of medical, legalization, or the status quo, 39% choose legalization. Now, this is an interesting point of view. I decided to actually look up the Pew poll. And part of what it said is that 2/3 of the people say the government should focus more on providing treatment, and only a quarter think we should prosecute drug users. 63% of the people in 2014 believe that mandatory minimum prison sentences are a bad thing. 69% of the people think alcohol is more harmful than marijuana to people's health, and 63% think alcohol is more harmful than marijuana to society. And let's see, the support for marijuana legalization in that poll was 54%. Would legalizing marijuana lead more underage people to try it? 54% say yes, but would people be bothered if marijuana were legal? They would be bothered if people were using it in public, 63%, but using it in their own home, only 15%. The Pew poll that he's referring to also says that the problem of drug abuse across the country is a crisis, 32%, 55% say a serious problem. See if we can get to more of the marijuana points here. Should marijuana be legal? 54%. Should there be jail for possession of small amounts of marijuana? 76% say no. Again, the alcohol more harmful by broad numbers amongst all demographics. So this point that he tries to make about marijuana legalization. Oh, here's the question. I actually found it. Which comes closer to your view about marijuana use by adults? It should be legal for personal use, it should be legal only for medical use, or it should not be legal. 39% said personal, 44% said medical use. So that begs the question, Kevin Sabet, do you support the medical use of marijuana? If we're going to go off this Pew poll here, let's see. So Kevin's upset that some of the news outlets there are reporting the inevitability of marijuana legalization. Another point that he would like the news outlets to make: big marijuana, like big tobacco before it, is a growing industry that deserves much deeper scrutiny. Oh yeah, we ought to have some more shows about the marijuana business. You know, networks like CNBC, Nat Geo, MSNBC, CNN, ABC 2020, CBS News, Fox Business News. Yeah, we ought to have some scrutiny on the marijuana industry. Somebody ought to do a show, or maybe a documentary or 2 or 3 or 4 or 6 or 10. This is his usual big tobacco shibboleth, the big scary talking point, that the media gave big tobacco a free pass because newspaper and magazines got the benefit of selling ad space, right? Yeah, the newspaper industry. Remember that? Remember the 20th century? Anyway, he calls marijuana the big tobacco 2.0, and this is his quote. Today's marijuana industry is following exactly the same tactics as big tobacco, framing its product as healthy, denying the science linking its use to numerous health problems, and targeting youth as lifelong customers. Okay, so framing our product as healthy. Now, in the context of what he's talking about with big tobacco, that goes back to when, doctors smoked Chesterfields and they would deny, the lung cancer and they would deny the COPD, right? Because, tobacco is toxic and addictive. You have to lie about its health consequences because it kills 440,000 people a year. Marijuana doesn't have to lie, Kevin. We can tell the truth about marijuana. We can say, hey, if you smoke marijuana while you're high, you'll have some problems with your short-term memory. You might giggle a lot. Your mouth will get dry. Your eyes will get red. You might get tired and sleepy. You might find yourself being more creative or experiencing sensations at a greater degree than normal. After you've gotten high, now maybe for some people they might get a little anxious, a little paranoid. That's a possible side effect. And, after you're high, after the high wears off, you won't have a hangover. There's not going to be any sort of hangover, and you're not going to have an intense craving to use it again. So that's the truth, Kevin. That's the truth. Now, he'll want to pull out all these things about lowered IQ and sperm count can go down and, this or that. Whatever he might bring up is, first of all, usually a study that has been misinterpreted or twisted in a way, ignoring certain factors, some certain confounders. And even if what Kevin Sabet and all the prohibitionists say about marijuana were true, it wouldn't matter. Locking people up and denying them the choice of using a substance safer than alcohol is untenable in this country. We have established through the legalization of alcohol, through the 21st Amendment, it's in our freaking Constitution. Alcohol is in our Constitution. We have established that adults have a right to alter their consciousness and do so in a way that is directly harmful to them and to society. We know how much death there is from drunk driving, how much abuse there is from drunken spouses and boyfriends and girlfriends and such. We know how much fetal alcohol syndrome affects babies. And yet, we approve of outlets where this drug is dispensed regularly. People can drive their car there and park it. We've accepted that. It is just untenable and unthinkable to those of us who are cannabis consumers that you would turn a blind eye to that abuse, that abuse is cultural and we can accept that. And when we want to use cannabis, to use marijuana, to use something that is far less harmful, you still want to arrest us and harass us and make sure we're not seen in public and we're shut into cages and that we're forced into rehabs so that we never, ever, ever do that again. But it would be okay if we went and had a beer, smoked a cigarette. That'd be fine. We're going to take a break. We'll be right back to talk more about Kevin Sabet's latest talking points.
You're tuned into the Russ Belville Show, the voice of the marijuana nation.
Georgia. Hi, this is Willie Nelson, and I need your help. Alcohol prohibition didn't work in the 20s, and marijuana prohibition isn't working today. It's time we stop arresting law-abiding citizens because they prefer marijuana over alcohol. Nearly 2,000 Americans are arrested every day on marijuana charges. We're unfairly destroying the lives and careers of hundreds of thousands of people each year simply because they smoke marijuana. These are not criminals. They're average citizens like you, good neighbors who work hard, raise families, pay taxes, and contribute to their communities. We need your help to end marijuana prohibition once and for all. It's the fair thing to do.
For more information, contact NORML, the National Organization for the Reform of Marijuana Laws. Call toll-free 888-67-NORML or visit their website at norml.org. Fun.
What's happening, cool cats? This is Big Daddy, and I want you to cruise on over to the Funky Roller Rink. We'll be grooving all night long. Doors open at 11 Eastern, 8 Pacific, every Thursday night, right here on RadicalRuss.com.
Funky-licious.
This is Radical Russ encouraging you to take a look at the Weed Blog every day. Johnny Green and the staff at the Weed Blog are on top of all the latest developments in the fight to end marijuana prohibition nationwide. You can even get the Weed Blog on your smartphone by installing the Weed Blog app for iPhone and Android. If it's about weed, it's on the Weed Blog, including my original writing. So don't delay. Read the Weed Blog today.
Come. Can anybody let's walk and talk so we can hear each other's side. You huff and puff and stuff and seem to think that you're alright. We trying to see eye to eye, but with you there is no compromise. You staring at the moon, we looking up at the sunrise. So come please take my hand and try to...
That's music from the Cottonmouth Kings with Can Anybody Hear Me? As we're winding things up here at 420radio.org. Remember, coming up next, 5 o'clock, we've got Big Daddy Thinks, Funky Roller Rink. It's the Motown Sound episode, so check that out coming up at 5 and 8 o'clock. Replays of these 2 hours coming up at 6 and 7. Those are Pacific time. Adjust for your time zone. You can check out our program guide at 420radio.org/programs for the time zones in your area, or go to our Google Calendar at 420radio.org/schedule. Winding up here with Kevin Sabet's 5 ways the media should accurately cover marijuana stories. He talks about, remember Joe Camel and candy cigarettes? No, I don't. Haven't seen Joe Camel since 1998. Haven't seen candy cigarettes since I think I was about 13 years old. So we were able to get rid of Joe Camel and candy cigarettes, Kevin. Why can't we get rid of the other things now? Why can't we get rid of or make the marijuana advertising or production or any of that? Why would we have to go through all the mistakes we had with tobacco? I don't understand that. But he worries that, the marijuana industry offers myriad marijuana-related products such as candy, soda, ice cream, and cartoon-themed paraphernalia and vaporizers, which are undoubtedly attractive to children and teens. Look, I got my problem with some of the marketing of marijuana stuff, and it shouldn't be marketed in such a way that's appealing to children and teens. However, Adults like candy, soda, and ice cream. Adults like cartoons. Have you seen the box office draw for Iron Man? It's ridiculous that we should have to live in a world that's completely nerfed for kids. That we can't be adults and we can't just say, hey, look, some things are adult things. It's just very frustrating sometimes. He also brings up the big specter of big tobacco and the startups and all these companies that are trying to get into the green rush, as if we should fear those marijuana businesses over the Zetas cartel, over the Juarez cartel, over whatever gang it is in your city that is selling and growing and distributing marijuana. We should fear those guys who would follow laws and pay taxes and create jobs. We should fear those guys rather than the Mexican cartels that have set up grows in Northern California and are poisoning the dogs of the researchers that are trying to out them, right? We should fear those people less than we should fear the corporate marijuana. Okay, got it. He also brings up this boogeyman of big tobacco, that we're going to, Philip Morrisize it, that we're going to Marlboroize it. They're going to come in and have all the plants, and brings up these old quotes from the 70s, for God's sake. Look, Kevin, so long as marijuana is federally prohibited, no big tobacco company wants to jump into that water. They do have this tendency to get sued by the government. And I think the minute a big tobacco company gets involved with the growing and distribution of a Schedule I product, they might have a problem with that. Number 3, he wants the media to stop comparing marijuana legalization to same-sex marriage, because same-sex marriage and marijuana legalization are completely different. Same-sex marriage is a civil rights or religious issue, but marijuana is a health issue. Are you kidding me? Marijuana is not a civil rights issue? It's the civil rights issue of our time. What is more a civil right than the jurisdiction over your own mind and body? What is more a civil right than to determine whether or not the government or your employer has the right to force you not to ingest a plant that is far less harmful than lots of things we're allowed to ingest? It's the civil rights battle of our time. And a religious issue? A religious issue? Have you heard of the Roger Christie case, the THC ministry? Have you heard of Rastafarianism? Have you read Genesis 1:29? Number 4, stop saying marijuana doesn't kill anyone or that it is non-addictive. All right, I'm going to say that marijuana is not non-addictive. Some people can develop a dependence on marijuana that is usually very mild and easy to kick. And as far as marijuana killing no one, again, no possible fatal overdose is what we say. No fatal overdose. Could someone smoke pot and get in a car wreck and die? Sure. Could someone smoke pot and jump off a balcony and die? Sure. It's possible. But all those things are possible from alcohol in spades. And finally, he says physicians and scientist groups overwhelmingly oppose legalization, as do cops. Well, of course. It's competition. That's what it's up. Gotta call it Miami. Big Day up next. Back to
We love the earth, so you gotta protect it. The Mother Earth, you got to respect it. By using that land, what gives them money. Some papers rerun, so you know we'll finally be on about the plans the mother has grown. This time around, you know, if you haven't heard, we love the earth.
This is the Russ Belville Show. The Russ Belville Show is blogging and podcasting daily at radicalruss.com.
You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you